I go up to him and I sort of shake him and I'm like, hi, I'm really sorry, you're snoring really loudly. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. And his son is like, Dad, you've got to stop snoring so loud. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, it's all right, just stop.
Yeah.
And I don't know
Stay
what
away.
to say. He did not watch more than 6 minutes of that film. He was fast asleep. Like the snoring came in and out, but... So this is a new one of really weird things happening in the cinema and coming on this show and complaining about them. So in my screening of Talk to Me, fairly empty screening, I think 6 or 7 people in total in a sort of medium-sized multiplex screening. And I walk in, it's midway through the ads, you got the Audi E-Type hybrids and the Diet Coke and the Jaguar X whatever. And there's this, I'm like, the very front row of seats. So you've got like a walkway and then loads of seats. I'm just right at the front, like, see the screen. Yeah. There's like loads of seats in front, but I've got like a walkway. And then to the right of me, like 2 rows ahead, are 2 men, one of whom is like 30s, and then what I assume was his dad in his late 50s to mid 60s. And the old guy is deep asleep. And he's asleep like sort of in a very dad way with his... arms back folded, asleep. And I'm, seeing the ads, I'm sort of flicking on my phone, waiting for them to finish. And I just hear this very deep...
Wow.
And I thought, that's interesting, to be asleep already within what I assume is 5 minutes of ads.
And
Unless you got here really early.
Deep sleep?
Deep sleep. So I'm like, it's really loud. And like, there's another guy who's my age who's sitting on my row. And we're both laughing because he's snoring really loudly. And I'm like, okay, but okay, sleeping now, surely it will end. And so we get to the trailers, and I'm like, because the lights go down, but the noise goes up, so like maybe something will wake him up. First trailer is for like a softly spoken foreign language indie romance film, like this is no good.
Yeah.
I need like a trailer to come in. Then I see the trailer for the Equalizer 3, and I'm like, right, there's a car explosion.
And he's the target audience.
There's guns going off, nothing. Deep.
No.
There's like snores where the mouth is open.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
yeah.
Like this was like a deep, like the chin is down.
A very dad
snore.
sleep. Yeah.
And like people are laughing because he's really snoring. And then you get to the...
And so his son is next to him.
His son is next to him, no care in the world. And I'm like, this really won't do. This really won't
this
do.
very quiet atmospheric horror
I was like,
film.
but this is new. And I was like, maybe he was in the last screening.
That's what I was thinking.
But I was like, his son is there. Anyway, and they had loads of food with them. And it gets to like BBFC rating, Talk to Me, a very quiet moment, and still snoring. And the one thing that stirred him a bit was if you go to a View cinema, Daniel Kaluuya does a voiceover where he goes, "Oi, got you, didn't I?
Yeah.
Time to turn off your phone." That made him go, and he woke up for a bit, and I was like, oh, good. Thank you, Daniel Kaluuya, for your like loud thing. But film started. And the snoring continued.
No.
So the film, and it's quite, Talk to Me is quite a loud first scene.
Yeah.
So I was like, if this doesn't wake him up, I don't know what is. So, that loud scene ended and the film starts and it's just...
Oh, no, you got it. Yeah,
it was terrible. And so there's like, everyone in the theater is like laughing. I'm like completely losing... this is a horror film. I can't have this happen. So I was like... Am I going to be the one? This is new.
Yeah.
This is
a new challenge. You're testing me today, God.
And I can really see him, and I'm just like... So I stand up, and I go up to him, and I sort of shake him, and I'm like, hi, I'm really sorry, you're snoring really loudly. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. And his son is like, Dad, you've got to stop snoring so loud. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, it's all right, just stop.
Yeah.
And I don't know
Stay
what to
away.
say. It's a really weird thing to do. And I also so I go back, the snoring stops for about 10 minutes.
Oh, no.
But George, he did not watch more than 6 minutes of that film. He was fast asleep. Like the snoring came in and out, but I've just never seen a dad just not awake at all. And then he woke up at one point in the middle with his phone on full brightness, check it, texts, no, and then back to sleep. So for a lot of the film, snoring.
And what his son had a responsibility to
and just
woke him
didn't
up
really.
there,
I think at one point he sort of slapped. He was like, everyone can hear you snoring, but like He was howling.
I mean, I had
through
a
the
couple
entire
of
thing.
talkers in mind, and I get, you know what, James, I give them the look, but there's some people you don't want to go up
And I don't want to judge. I'm a snorer. I enjoy a good snore.
Are you?
Yeah, I snore. I can't help it.
I bet you
right?
are. Oh, because you can sleep everywhere. You're one of those smug people.
Yeah, I do snore. It's like not at the cinema.
No. However, company does. I mean, very good. Selling point for the seats.
Yeah, it can't be. I really didn't want to be that guy, but I just, you're like, try and focus, James. Try and focus.
I know.
I just couldn't do it. I had to be that guy to
Well,
go and go.
I had behind me. I have to sort of do the distance because it's not the
yeah.
loud. Yeah, wasn't. Yeah, it was. Wouldn't it be funny if the ball went in? Yeah, my days. That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Yeah.
But behind you's better because you can turn.
I did do the turn and look, and they nothing. Nothing. I think even a deliberate look at me and like they were like, yeah, we're gonna keep talking, but not over it out, but just like, my days. You know what I'm saying? So we probably like, I bet she's gonna go in there. Yeah, but anyway, whatever. It happens.
It happens. That was new. I've never seen that.
Yeah.
Like asleep throughout the whole film.
Do you know what he's not seen? The movie.
No, he does not gun to his head. Know a single thing about
he
that
will
movie.
go home and they will say to him, what do you think of the movie? And he'll go, all right.
It's all right. He'll go, it's all
not
right.
for me. Not for me.
Like, name one thing that happened.
Yeah.
I would love it to just, like, his whole family, friends, entire net worth on the line. Tell me one thing that happened in that film, and he couldn't. But yeah, that was a new one. I don't want to become a podcast where we just become grumpy old men moaning about conduct in cinema, but I had to report.
I had to. No, I know. But also going to this, I mean, Talk to Me was one of those films that like I was happy to go see with my friends. It wasn't like a film I saw months ahead in the calendar and thought I need to see that.
Yeah.
So I was quite relaxed, even if there are a couple of talkers. I was like, okay, well, it's not like Oppenheimer where I really want to, focus.
Horror
but
contract a certain.
Having said that, a couple of times, sometimes I love going to the cinema, and then sometimes I'm like, this is why people stay at home.
Yeah.
This is why people stay at home, because everyone else just either treats it like their living room or wants to be in the living room.
For me, it's when there's a problem with the projection or the screening. And I'm like, I'm here for like a very good quality. And if you cannot offer me that.
Did I tell you about the time my friend went to see Akira at the cinema, which is great that they're showing an old film, and he hadn't seen it. It was great. And it starts, and it's the projection is too big for the screen, so all the subtitles are off the screen on like the fabric, and it's like not corrected from like 4 or 5 minutes. So he goes out and tells someone, goes back in, takes 5 minutes to correct. They don't restart the film; they just carry on playing, and that's refundable, I think. In my mind. Welcome to this episode of Pulp Kitchen, episode 87.
Guys,
Wow.
Thank you to everyone who tuned in for the Barbenheimer episode yesterday. We broke our records the day after we posted that for the highest ever listens in one day.
Not yesterday.
Sorry, last week. Yeah.
It seems like yesterday.
What year is it? Which is really cool. So thank you so much for tuning
thank
into that. It was really great to have everyone be a part of it.
A big one.
Yeah.
And
oh my God.
It was a big record. And we did a spoiler episode as well. And there's a whole bank of Barbie and Oppenheimer content for you to indulge in if you have not already.
If you haven't listened to our spoiler cast, we did a bonus episode for people if you've now caught up on Barbie and Oppenheimer, please go and check those out.
And
we went over more plot details.
Just a full acknowledgement that our emails this week are going to be still very much Barbie and Oppenheimer themed.
Yeah.
A lot of correspondence. It is the movie event of the year, so we fully understand it. So thank you. There are other films to talk about this week. I mean, in a way, I'm kind of like I've loved the Barbenheimer thing, but I'm ready to like taste something else. And you and I like it. We've seen two smaller, newer films. We've seen Talk to Me, a new horror film, and you've seen Joyride.
Yeah.
Right, fantastic. And we also have, as ever, guys, bonus content coming out this week. This week, it's going to be about Quentin Tarantino. Why are we making bonus about Quentin Tarantino? Well, listen to the bonus episode and you'll find out.
I'd also like to apologise for how our faces just completely deteriorated towards the end. Because we did like 4 hours of recording, and I'd like to ask any of you, when was the last time you had a 4 hour long conversation? Not like
on a train when you're not even looking at
No, I mean like a 4 hour conversation. It is
while trying to rig a set.
So I was sending screenshots of our faces, like from the beginning and the end, George, just seeing how we deteriorated. But
it's like in 2001 where at the end we like sees older versions of himself. Sees the old man. It's like that's how I felt.
But the games will be back today.
The games are back today. I've got 3 rounds of a game that I think we're going to enjoy, and let's get on with it. I will just say that somebody on the Oppenheimer stuff, some people said, "Oh, George, I felt like you're a bit harsh, or like were you in a bit of a bad mood?" No, I wasn't in a bad mood, and I don't think I was too harsh at all. I think I was very respectful to the film. I will say that you're not just hearing us review the film in last week's episode. You're actually hearing James and I have a conversation. The result of which, by the time we finished recording last week, I was like, "Yeah, I'll go see that again happily."
Yeah, I did, and I'll be talking about it
when we get to the emails.
When we get to emails.
But now onto the new films for us to review. Let's do Talk to Me, the new horror film that's out. So Talk to Me is a Australian horror film from directors Danny Philippou and Michael Philippou, who cut their teeth and made their name very successfully on YouTube in like the peak of YouTube days with a channel called Raka. And they've now branched out into making an actual horror film. Nice, tight, 95-minute horror film with a very modest budget of $4.5 million. Talk to Me is a horror film, the premise of which is this. We follow main character called Mia, and who, like a lot of horror movie characters, has a single parent. She's bereaved. Her mum died 2 years ago, and she's still very much mourning the loss of that, and her life is still very much imbalanced. She's developed a very close relationship with one of her friends, and feels very much kind of she's moved kind of. She's rejected kind of the family role of her father and spending more and more time with this other family comprised of her friend and her friend's younger brother, Riley. They're very close, and very early on in the film, Mia says, "I want to go to this party. Come on, let's go and do this." There's this, they're doing it again. You see this video footage of, I must say, something that doesn't look like something you'd want to do. It actually looks like it's video footage of basically looks like people like ODing, like having basically like a demonic possession, and they're like, "Oh, I want to go check it out." I'm like, no one would say that.
It's not real, right?
Yeah. So there's this whole thing like, it's not real. Yes, it is. Someone's boyfriend's there. Blah blah blah. So they go to this house party. And, typical house party, you've got people being very mean and talking rubbish. And my pet peeve with, I don't think this film does it badly, but I think that really kind of gets my hair on edge is when you have like a team party, because it's very easy to do. I think it's very, very hard to do that well and make it believable.
Yeah.
There's some sort of pulls it off, but usually you have the tropes come in. You're like, "Huh, what are you doing, hey man?" Yeah.
I thought it was a lot easier before I was a teen. I was like, I've never been to one of these.
Yeah.
I don't know what would happen. And then you go to one, you're like, oh.
So they turn up. They take Riley, her friend's younger brother, with them as well, which is great because it's like a bit like in Hereditary when you take a younger person to a team party, kind of plays on that anxiety. And very soon they come to the premise of the film, which is this: these friends have a hand, it's a kind of ceramic hand that looks like it's open and outstretched for someone to engage with it. That sort of stops at the sort of forearm. And they place it on the table, and it's sort of got lots of bits of writing on it. And it's sort of this freaky,
scarred up and used.
Yeah, a freaky looking thing. And one of the friends explains, like, what we're going to do is, you light a candle to let it in, you blow a candle to let it out, and we're going to sit round, and you sit down and you put the hand in your hand and you say, talk to me. And no one seems to question, actually, I'm thinking about it, no one seems to question the connection with the spirit world that this hand immediately gives them.
Yeah.
But
there's one point where they're like, how do you think it came from? Like, I heard it's like the
the origin
hand
story
of a prophet or whatever. Yeah.
And but you put out your hand, say talk to me, and you're immediately connected with the spirit world, and then you say let me in, which lets the spirit from the other world into your body, and it feels, for those who do it, very much like a thrill, like a high. And the first thing to say is that this film plays on, in much the same way that It Follows has a parallel with sexually transmitted diseases and the anxiety around that. This film very much, to a lesser success, but and to a kind of less precision, but is about a parallel to taking drugs, getting high at parties, and the consequences of that.
And this whole idea, like, you have to do it.
Yes, you have to do it in 90 seconds. So you have 90 seconds, and then you blow the candle out. And of course, they love it. They enjoy it like kids do. It's dangerous, but they get a kick out of it. Yeah. And they do it more and more and more. But let's just say, obviously, certain things don't go to plan. And that is the film Talk to Me. It's a horror film. Now, James, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. We talked about horror throughout the year, bits and pieces. We loved Barbarian last year. Saw Scream 6 earlier this year, Evil Dead Rise. James, talk to me. What do you think?
I liked it. I enjoyed it. I think there are certain elements of it that are quite clean and simple. I enjoyed in a small horror film it not trying to, even though we just criticised it for being like, wait, how do the rules work? I actually didn't. I'm glad it didn't try to give me an origin and over-explain how this hand came to be. It works to have this element of a connection to the other side. Yeah. It's ominous. They probably shouldn't be messing with it, but they are. Yeah. That for me works. I thought the hand was very creepy. I think there were some really good scares the first time you're introduced to the rules of the hand. There are a lot of plot points I saw coming from a mile away. I think that on paper, the idea you've described, apart from like the idea of a literal hand, it's things that I think we've seen before and it's very familiar. But all in all, I enjoyed it. I think there are very good scares in there, and I think it was solid.
What you say about the hand, you've seen it before, then would you? Because I actually
like the idea of like
his
a girl
his
who
totemic object.
A totemic object that you're into, like a Ouija board, right? It's a modern Ouija board. So there is a character who has some sort of longing connection from someone who has passed.
Yes.
And as they start into Babadook, and funnily enough, these guys worked on the Babadook.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, it was quite a nice story to see that they started out as YouTubers putting shorts, like horror, not even horror shorts, just short films, and then they worked as like camera and lighting technicians on other much bigger films, and have now been given this opportunity, I think, which is cool, and they worked on the Babadook, so that DNA is there. So like more ideas we've seen before, but I feel like it didn't try and overstretch itself too much.
I also thought the hand was very reminiscent of like the monkey paw from the Twilight Zone, the wishes, things. Well, for me, I actually think I kind of agree with you. I think it's solid. I think it's fine. I think it's pretty good actually, and actually, compared to a lot of other horror films, what the best thing about this film is how it does not feel derivative. I know you said you've seen other things, but I think it doesn't feel derivative. Doesn't feel unoriginal. It actually feels quite fresh and clean, and as you say, and precise. It's simple, but it's quite effective.
Its scares didn't feel cheap to me either. I feel like even its jumpiest moments, I was like, but I kind of feel like you earned that.
And it also different kinds of scares. You've got very sort of creepy imagery that works. You have got obviously the typical quiet bang that every horror film delivers, but it doesn't just rely on that. And then when it wants to get nasty, it gets nasty. And they do this thing with the sound mixing, which is they turn up whenever a contact is made. I don't mean contact with the spirit, but like physical contact with something else. They have clearly amplified the sound. So
the surround.
Yes.
That was really cool.
But my point is when shit kicks off, it really kicks off, and it's very effective. And I was really wincing in my seat. And I was like, oh god,
there were a couple of moments which I've never really, even in a cinema,
body horror is one thing. There's really squelchy body horror.
There are moments in the cinema which I know there's surround sound going, but I'm usually not that aware of it. There were two moments where something was said like to the back left of me, and I genuinely for a second thought like someone was doing something, and I was like, I sort of half turned my head. I was like, oh no, this is in the film, and I was like, that's really, really cool that they've done that.
There was also one line in it that I found very chilling, which I'm not going to say because it's a spoiler, but I was like, I like the fact that only just a line, just by saying a line in it, maybe kind of creeped out. So effective in that way. I will say that I think superficially people could say it's a little bit like Flatliners, which came out like 30 years ago. I mean, they actually made a remake of Flatliners, with Elliot Page, James Norton. You probably just don't even know. Yeah, came and went. And I actually think there's one shot in this which I was like, that's Event Horizon. I don't know if have you ever seen Event Horizon? There's what people will know if they've seen Event Horizon and they see this film. There's one bit they go, well, that's very Event Horizon. It works in this film. Not that these two films are similar at all. I thought it was effective, clean, precise, gooey enough, creepy enough, different enough.
I liked the end. I won't spoil it, but I did enjoy the way the ending was quite simple. And I was like, I've credits rolled, and I was like, nice.
And also,
you give me enough to finish that.
Also enough that when we came out, me and my friends were going, oh, I thought this. They're like, no, don't you understand what's happened there?
Yeah.
Like, this has happened. And I was like, oh, I see.
There's also a good, just like in terms of, I think if you've got a horror film, especially one that's on a budget, the less you have to sort of over-illustrate, the better, and the more you can allude to. There's one moment sort of in sort of deep second half where it alludes to a much greater plane of where someone might be.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah,
is that the shot?
That's the Event Horizon.
Oh,
bit,
great. Yeah, I saw that, and it was only for a moment, and I was like,
yeah, and that's what it needs to be.
That stuck in my mind. That was my favourite shot of the whole film.
Yeah.
Just like the idea of what could be happening. I thought that was really, really good.
I think that again, but that's what I liked about it. Considering like the last horror film I saw was Evil Dead Rise, and my main problem with that was it was so generic and so derivative, and like this is such a refreshing thing. Also, it's a new horror film that isn't trying to be an Ari Aster film.
Yes,
it's not trying to be Hereditary Mark III or whatever. So I thought it was really great. Also, sorry.
Yeah.
What sometimes helps these horror films is that you see all the horror trailers beforehand.
Yeah, it really warms you up.
I saw the trailer for The Nun 2,
Yeah.
The Exorcist sequel, which
Was that the one we talked about ages ago that they would?
they were doing, and I saw the trailer and I went,
No.
did they miss? I mean, look, it's 50 years since the original, but I saw the trailer, which is full of CGI, girls running around, and I was like, did they learn nothing?
I was
from
like, is
the
that
film?
the one that they've wanted? I was like, is that the film I talked about like a year and a half ago on
Yeah.
the podcast that I thought might have been interesting? Nope.
No
This
way.
looks
But
very
anyway, so you
generic.
have those sort of very generic, quiet bang
Yeah.
trailers, and then you watch, and also the bloody trailer for The Haunting in Venice, the horror film that's actually a Hercule Poirot film. Nice little sneaky marketing there. So when the
Today, by the way, in Office, they show that before Oppenheimer. Like, people are watching this horror film and then they see Kenneth Branagh and people laugh.
Yeah,
Because they find
exactly.
it funny because he's talking in a funny voice. Anyway.
But then so when the film actually begins Talk to Me, it's like, this is actually nicely effective and done. So there you go. That's Talk to Me.
What I will say about what I will say about that sort of prelude of trailers for horror and comparing it to the comedy landscape in cinema is that despite COVID and as we talked about ad nauseum, the consolidation of superhero films, the lack of diversity in films, I feel like horror's always kind of had a spot in the cinema for a long time. Yes, you've seen franchises like the Insidious, Conjuring, Nunverse, but they've always been able to get in the cinema, whereas comedies
That's true.
don't feel like they happen.
Different people find different things funny. People usually find the same thing scary.
Yeah.
It's
I was talking about quality. I know it's like a variation of quality, which you can say for superhero films too, right?
But if you look the whole history of cinema, horror is always very consistent.
Yes.
It has a consistent presence in cinema. Nosferatu,
Yeah.
right? And then Exorcist.
There's always been horror films to see.
But
in
that's because you
cinemas.
can make them actually quite cheaply.
Yeah.
And still
Low
deliver
risk.
scares. I mean, how many careers have started with a low budget horror
Yeah.
film like this one and then are given greater access up along the line? Someone emailed in, by the way, a couple of weeks ago and was like, oh, have you guys seen Barbarian? I wanted to let you know, it's a film that came out last year. I was like,
we
you
talk
must be
about
a
it
new
most
listener.
weeks.
we talked about it extensively. We very much liked it.
Please
One
go
of our
and check our
highlights of
review
last
of-
year.
yeah.
Barbarian, you can see it online. Anyway, that was Talk to Me. Let us know if you've seen it. We'd love to hear your thoughts and email in to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com. Guys, it's really important to have a great skincare routine. Whether you want to make a great first impression or just feel better about your skin, Caldera Lab is clinically proven to reduce wrinkles, fine lines, and signs of aging.
The regimen is a twice-a-day formula to help transform your skin. It's really easy and only takes 30 seconds. This includes the clean slate to start and end your day, leaving your skin feeling refreshed. Then there's the base layer to moisturize and hydrate your skin. Then you have the good, which is the go-to at-night face serum to help reduce the visibility of wrinkles and fine lines. And if you wanted to take it a step further, you have the Icon, which is an eye serum which helps reduce fine lines, dark circles, and puffiness.
Use our exclusive code PULP20, that's PULP20, to enjoy 20% off Caldera's best products. You can find the link in our description. James, Joyride is also out, which has got big things on the poster saying that it's the new Crazy Rich Asians. Look at this. I see Ashley Parker's in it from Emily in Paris. So, Joyride.
Joyride.
Is someone called Joy in it? Is that the joke?
No.
Thank God it's better
No.
than that. That's why I'm not loud in a writer's room.
Directed by... Wait, is it?
Joy's Ride.
I need to check now.
I was like, I bet somebody's called Joy in this movie.
No,
It's
no
like-
one's called Joy, but
There
you
we
made me
go.
doubt for a split second. Joyride is directed by Adele Lim, who wrote Crazy Rich Asians.
Got it.
It's a feature debut, and it's produced by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, Point Grey production, so it's sort of their ilk. And it's written by, and I apologize if I don't get this name right, Cherry Chevpravat Dumrong, which is a name credit I recognize from Family Guy because it's such a long name. I'm like, oh, that person used to write on Family Guy. It stars Ashley Park, Sherry Cola, Stephanie Sue,
I think it is Shu.
Is it Shu?
From Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
And Sabrina Wu. It is a raunchy road trip comedy. So Audrey is one of the main characters. She is an Asian adoptee with white parents living in White Hills, Seattle. And there's this moment where her parents are at a playground and she sees this other Asian, her parents, they see this other Asian family with an Asian daughter, and they awkwardly walk up to them and go, hi, can child play
Asian
with.
child,
Look at
your
our
Asian
Asian
child.
child. I think it'd be cute if our Asian children were friends. And there's sort of this awkward setup. But of course, like when you're 4 or 5 years old, if someone just puts you next to someone, you immediately become best friends. And this is where she meets Lola. And Audrey becomes this massive overachiever, and there's this scene in the beginning where she's delivering to her class, and they're talking about their family roots and where they grew up, and all of the people on her family are not her real family, they're her adoptee family, and they're all white. And a kid in the class goes, "Why do your family look different?" And she goes, "Oh, because I'm an adoptee." And she's like, "That's stupid." And then her best friend Lola immediately comes to her defense and is like, "Oh my God, don't worry, like, it's okay. I hope you don't feel this need to like overcompensate and become a massive overachiever." And she's like, "Not at all." Cut to like the next 10 years, like top honest student, champion of the mess, but goes on to become a very successful lawyer at a very prestigious law firm. Whereas Joy, not so much, becomes much more of a, she creates very sex positive art with lots of like phalluses and genitalia, because it never really kind of found her thing. And Audrey works at a very prestigious law firm, and it's a very white, male-dominant workforce, and she's been given the offer of being able to make a partner if she can close a deal with a Chinese businessman. And there's this sort of assumption that like, well, you know, you're Chinese, so surely you'll be able to get in with that and make it all work. And if you can pull it off, we're going to send you to China and you can sort of close this deal. And sort of being of Chinese descent, it's assumed that she'd be great at that. But there is she has this awkward identity crisis where she's at odds with how much of her Chinese identity means to her versus her friend Lola, who has Chinese parents, who like, you know, is very confident, speaks Mandarin, knows all the different references and that kind of thing, and has much more of a sort of centered identity. And that's where a lot of the comedy comes from. So in order to make this trip a success, Audrey brings Lola with her on this business trip to help her speak the language, help her connect. Also joined by Lola's cousin, Vanessa, who's nicknamed Deadeye, who is very socially awkward, but is addicted to K-pop, okay? Right. I'm nearly done with the plot synopsis. So in China, Audrey is needing to impress this Chinese businessman who, in order to know if she's going to be a good business venture, needs to know more about Audrey's birth family. So Audrey decides to track down her birth mother to find out who she really is, right? So in this process of, you know, I need to get this guy to realize that I'm properly Chinese, she needs to discover who she is, road trip, okay? First thing I noticed is that the influence, the skeleton, the stencil of The Hangover and Bridesmaids and Superbad is very, very much present. Yeah. And I think both
is a studio comedy,
very much so. And the plot structure and the literal character dynamics at play are sometimes like directly ripped from that. So you know, in Bridesmaids, she's her friend from like life, but she's got this new friend from college who they also meet. He's like a famous film star, and they have all of these reference. That dynamic's there. You know, the Melissa McCarthy character in Bridesmaids and the Zach Galifianakis character.
There's always the funny weird one,
the unhinged funny weird one who says the crazy stuff, who gets in the craziest situations. That's
what
there.
Shenanigans.
Yeah. The first thing I would say is that I really enjoy the characters, and I think the strength of the film really lies in its cast. I think they're very heartwarming, and there's a lot of warmth to their friendship, and I believe their friendship. And I think this focus on discovering Asian comedy as a frame for their identity discovery, but also as a tool for comedy, is funny, and I think that sense it works. As a comedy, I did find it very hit and miss. Like some of the most hit and miss I found, where it's like there were 3 or 4 times really shock comedy jokes that come from nowhere, and they really do surprise me and get me. And then a lot of it, I wrote in my notes, it sounds like watching a new stand-up comedian try something new. So like a joke will be said, and I go, he really leant in for that, and that just didn't quite land for me, which is a shame. And I think it struggles to find its voice. It's wearing these very ill-fitted suits of this very, what would be described as a previously very male-dominated comedic sphere and style. I know I mentioned Bridesmaids, but if I'm talking about Superbad and The Hangover, where it's very crass, very over-sexualized, like penis shock factor comedy where it's like, okay,
Oh my God, look at the genitals.
yeah, and it's like, okay, Superbad and The Hangover, or The Inbetweeners.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, and American Pie even.
Oh God,
It's like
we're going that far
but
back.
it's on the raunchiness is kind of there, and I'm like, yes, but they were teenagers. Whereas these are like, do grown
Do you
people
think-
talk this way that much?
May I counter
Yeah, please.
something? I just think, don't you think though that we do sometimes have a lack of sex comedies, that sometimes films are yes, you mentioned all those films, but I actually think like they've kind of died off in the decades since.
Yeah.
And we've had a lack of like joking about sex and being open and talking about
Yeah.
a sex positive comedy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I just it felt
But
like
still the jokes don't land.
trying to fit into like a very, because I'm conscious that this is a female fronted comedy which doesn't happen that much. And I'm like, oh, like this is really cool and really fun, and I like sort of the spin they've done on it, but it just feels like you're trying to push this square peg into the round, very male hole. That's like horrible
God,
analogy. I'm sorry.
Oh dear.
And then the pacing of the jokes is really quick, really fast, reminding me of like a sort of like Family Guy-esque, like how quick they come. And some of them don't work because I don't feel like they were given time to breathe. And a couple of them are... sorry, go on.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to say,
Yeah.
well, actually, I mean, again, I haven't seen this film.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, sometimes the problem I have with studio comedies is that they leave
Take
too
too
much
long.
space. They go, has that fun, eh? And then they leave the joke space and they go, yeah, sure. And I'm like, I realize that's because they're leaving space for the audience to laugh. But sometimes I like if it's so quick.
But I mean, like, we go on real plot detours for a joke.
Oh, wow.
And I stop and I look around and like I watched it with Talia and we're both like, hang on, like where are we?
Oh, right,
And what's
yeah.
going on? Like, was this still from that bit earlier?
Oh, I
And I was
see.
like, oh, they've lost me. I'm not
it.
getting it. And then
Sorry.
it kind of no, at all. And it kind of links back and it starts to feel a little bit surreal. I'm like, oh, like so much of what I have to see is pinch of salt. So look, it's a balance between really sweet, great performances, heartfelt sense of identity, which I think is what makes it unique, with very sexualized jokes for real shock
there's more than
value.
one.
yeah. And there's like the ones that come, like they're good, and I was like, oh, that's funny, but same thing you've done 3-4 times. So look, well, I don't think it comes together as the most smooth, slick, modern comedy that's gonna save it all and go, oh my God, like make more. It's definitely fun. It's very lighthearted, I think. It's got very good performances, and I think there's a few gags that will really get you.
There you go. That's Joyride. If you've seen Joyride and like to write in your opinion, write to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts. So as mentioned at the top of the show, we have had a lot of correspondence. We get a lot of correspondence every week, and we always try and get to it, but we've had a lot of correspondence, naturally, about Barbenheimer, prompted by people going to see it over the weekend and also listening to our episode and a lot of feedback. So we're going to try and get through as many Barbenheimer emails now whilst it's still fresh in everyone's mind.
Thank you so much for sending them in. It's really
Thank
great
you
to
so
see
much for
many of
sending
them.
in. This first one is from Josephine, who says, hello, Ken and Ken. I'm assuming your inbox is flooded with Barbenheimer reviews, so I'm sorry to add to the pile, but I just had to write in because I just had the best cinema experience of my life.
Nice.
I saw an early screening of Barbie tonight. This was sent a while back. And I absolutely adored it. I found it so relatable, nostalgic, funny, cathartic, and moving. I truly loved it so much and will remember the experience forever. That's amazing. That's great.
That's great.
That's
huge.
what everyone wants.
Yeah.
It shocked me to realize that this was the first time I'd ever seen such a huge blockbuster that was almost completely targeted at women, a movie truly made for women, for italicized, and I think even in a different font. I didn't even realize that this was something I had been missing until I had experienced it. Seeing every single woman in the fully packed cinema dressed up in pink and laughing, cheering and clapping along honestly made me a bit emotional. It also felt like such a luxury to laugh at jokes so completely aimed at women, even when they risked excluding a male audience. I find that the comedy in movies are often either aimed at men or either aimed at men or men and women, but rarely just at women. It's like you
full
just saying.
stop. I would go
just
say
comedies.
comedies. I feel like films in general.
I have to admit, it was at times a bit messy and maybe a few too many things were going on at once, but it really didn't bother me. However, something did bother. But just before we go on to the however, actually, I will just say that is the fact that, I mean, a lot of people have been saying this. They feel so seen.
Yeah.
They feel so validated and vindicated. That
It highlights the void in
I know.
films made for a female audience.
and it's the dumb.
specifically.
It's a shame that like we have to wait for the slow moving cogs of the machine of the minds of male dominated executives to go, oh wait, you're telling me if we made a movie for women that was directed by a woman, written by a woman, and led by women, they'd like it?
Yeah.
And it would be a box office smash.
I remember my...
Which is what that's the kind of character they're sending up as well with the Will Ferrell character. And Adam Mattel as well, sorry. I will say also I can see the seeds of this in Greta Gerwig's previous 2 films, in Little Women and in Greta Gerwig. Great, strong feminist films targeted at women, about women, with female lead characters that doesn't alienate the male audience, but is actually about...
And you can see the numbers, like people want to go see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just great. Anyway, I have to admit, it was a bit messy, blah, blah, blah. And however, something did bother me. It was that it all felt a bit like it had too many endings. This is something I've noticed more and more recently. For example, with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Wait, that had too many endings. That didn't have an ending. It just stopped. And Everything Everywhere All at Once. They all have this huge emotional climactic scene that seems very much like an ending, only for similar scenes that happen for another 3 or 4 times. See also Return of the King. I struggle explaining it, but I hope you understand what I mean. In conclusion, not a perfect movie, but a perfect movie for me.
Nice.
I like that. Hopefully Oppenheimer is as good. Excuse the rambly email. I'm too excited. Hugs from Josephine, sent from my 2004 plastic Barbie flip phone toy.
Love it.
Very good.
You know, at the end of Return of the King, from the moment the ring is destroyed, I think there's 35 to 40 minutes left to film, which is just...
endings.
And there are 5 endings you can count. Yeah. It's wonderful. This next one is from Emily, who, if you remember the email that came in as we were wrapping up last week, this was that email. Emily, who I appreciate, has written her email with a different font, and I want to say it's Avenir, which is a font I really enjoy.
Absolutely.
It says, "Hi, James and George."
Emily, also, I believe, friend of the show.
Friend of the show, Emily.
Emily, I think this might be the first time you've emailed in, and you may indeed just say that, but we recognise you on Instagram, always giving us good like and support and a share.
You get bumped. If you give us love on the socials, you get bumped.
Yeah,
to the
so
top.
we can see who's liked it on the story. Yeah. So we see you, we recognise you.
Anyway, Pulp Kitchen podcast. Hi, James and George. I hope you're well and managing to keep sane amongst the barrage of new releases to cover on the podcast. I saw on your Instagram stories you wanted the listeners' opinions on Barbie and Oppenheimer, and I thought I would add my 2 cents. I watched Barbie first and believe this to be the correct order for myself, as I do not think I would have the brain capacity to watch another film after a 3-hour Christopher Nolan epic. Brackets plus, I ended up preferring Oppenheimer anyway. As a huge Greta Gerwig fan and raging feminist, I was the perfect demographic for this film, and for the most part, I had a good time. The set design of Barbieland was an enormous achievement, and the costume design was genius. Everything was considered down to the smallest detail. I saw an interview with Greta where she explained that she used dancers instead of background actors, as they have better posture and carry themselves in a more doll-like way.
Oh, brilliant.
However, italicized, bold. When the film finished, I felt a little underwhelmed by the writing, which pains me, as I usually think Greta is a genius in that department. I thought the writing was heavy-handed and lacked the subtlety of the female experience that Gerwig usually masters. I appreciate that it is a film marketed at the masses and is literally about dolls, but I felt there was elements of the story glazed over with montages such as the loss of girlhood and reconnecting with your inner child. I feel like a lot of the discussion on patriarchy was spelled out in clunky monologues and overt behavior like catcalling and verbal abuse, but it's much more complicated than that, and the film was heavy in exposition rather than showing the female experience in the real world. That being said, I had fun, and I thought Ryan Gosling and Michael Cera were fantastic at adding the comedic levity, and no other actors could have played those roles. I love how the Kens also had an arc of realizing the patriarchy was negative for men also. That's also a really important arc.
That's a very important
part registers. The comedy made me howl as someone who dates men, found that "you haven't seen Goodfellas" and the "let me play the guitar at you" scenes very relatable. Aptly, Ken stole the show, and I cannot even be mad because Gosling was so damn great. So, Oppenheimer. George, before Barbie, any thoughts on those comments? I thought were very well written, Emily. I'll say just on your comments of sort of maybe the writing feeling like it let you down towards the end. I don't know if it's necessarily the writing, but there's certain elements about the film tying itself up, which I think where people maybe have problems with it.
I would say that people talk about the writing and how it becomes a little less, much less subtle towards the end about its message, particularly like America Ferrera's speech and its kind of point. And I think that's a fair criticism. I guess it can, if it's too explicit, it can kind of bring people out and it's too obvious. However, what I see in that, and I'm quite sympathetic to, is considering the conversation we just had about films made for women by women, is that I see in that moment Greta Gerwig being like, if I don't do this now, this is the best opportunity to the most amount of people I'm ever going to have.
Yeah.
So I've got to spell this out. If I have to spell this out in black and white and be as crystal clear as possible, I better do it because this is my moment. Shoot your shot, Greta. It's like, it's like, do you remember at the Elton John Glastonbury set when he invited the young guy from TikTok, that Steven Sanchez, up on the stage, and like he really enjoyed the moment. And I remember watching it, I was like, you know what? You've realised that you'll never get a crowd this big. Not saying you won't get it, but you'll never get Elton John at Glastonbury crowd, right? So you enjoy it. And I think Greta Gerwig is like, when am I ever going to have a mouthpiece this big to target this audience? I'm going to do a speech on the patriarchy, and you're all going to sit there, your captive audience, and you're going to listen. So fair enough. And hopefully it'll trickle through. Some people will reject it and go, it's too obvious, but some people will be there and it'll sink in. And I think that's the overall aim.
Next on, she was on to Oppenheimer. So,
actually, just another thought just went through my head. Can you imagine a film that's a crossover between Barbie and Alex Garland's Men, where it's a village full of Kens, and it's just called Ken?
Ken.
Ken. And they all look like Ken.
And instead of being like, they're just different.
There's one Barbie in town.
Beach Ken. It'd be like a creepy beach resort.
Yeah. Sorry, Oppenheimer.
That has to be made. I really want that. So, Oppenheimer. I feel like I enjoyed this more.
Please fiddle with the microphone more.
Yeah, sorry. I feel like it's my comfort movement.
Yeah.
I feel like I enjoyed this more and therefore have less to say. Brackets, sorry, this is such a rambling email. Not at all. Oppenheimer is a showcase in acting. Usually, Nolan's films are all about the effects and the wow factor, stunts, which Oppenheimer still achieved, but is less of a spectacle than Nolan's other films. For Nolan, this is relatively stripped back and is a pure, compelling character analysis, and every actor was mesmerizing. In the middle, it lost a little bit of momentum for me, but the third act, with the tense interviews and the double-crossing twist, was undeniably engaging. I think the casting of this film was masterful, and even though there were big notable names, I was lost in the story and did not find it distracting as it can be with some ensembles. I also just love the passion from the actors whilst doing press for Oppenheimer and how appreciative they are to be a part of the project. One teeny note would be, with lots of E's in the teeny, I think the score was not his strongest, but he has set his bar very high. Thank you for reading my waffle that I'm completely unqualified to share. PULP Kitchen is my favourite podcast, brackets OG single-digit listener.
Wow.
And I recommend it to everyone. I cannot wait until it inevitably reaches #1 in the film charts. Emily, brackets, not sent from my iPhone.
Thank you very much for that email, Emily. We really appreciate it. It goes again, like we said at the end of last week's episode, everyone feels differently about which part of Oppenheimer they prefer.
It's
some
not
people
consistent.
don't like the third act. Some people really love the third act. Some people, the second act is the best bit. Some people not. Some people find it hard to get into. Some people were straight into it. So interesting.
So last week, after our main chat and our spoiler chat, like some really positive feelings, some things that we said that were sort of definitely lacking about the film, but an overriding feeling that we both would want to see it again. And it was such a dense, thick script, and the very nature by which it reveals what's really going on in the story to the end really lends itself to a second viewing.
Yeah.
I rewatched it today.
Wow.
And
IMAX.
And by the way, full screening, Monday midday screening. I know it's the summer, but like, there's no sense that even a week later people aren't going to see it. So I had a much better experience, a much cleaner, clearer experience. I have a much better sense of understanding both of our original thoughts about the film. It actually acted as a real consolidation of, I enjoyed more of what I really liked in the first place, and I think I can see clearly why people have problems with it and why people are struggling with different parts of it. So like overall, watching it again, so much easier to, now I'm armed with the tools to understand, especially the first hour of the film. I'm realizing there are interactions with Strauss in the beginning, which when you watch it for the first time, you see it, you listen to it, but you can't understand it. And I'm very aware that like I only understand that because I saw the film a few days ago. And all of that now makes sense to me. And, just incredible performance, as we said. What I just didn't really make a comment of, what I really realized this time watching it, is that this film is such a love letter to science and that period of science, and how much it acts as this like celebration of what it can achieve, this incredible warning about like what we're allowing people to do, how much science and politics are like horribly entwined, and how like the frontier of research is informed by the politics, and the scientific discoveries are shaping ideology. And I just thought that was such an interesting thing, that these things back and forth and they affect. And this really great line where Rabi says, he decides not to be a part of the Manhattan Project, and he says, I really don't want the culmination of 3 centuries of physics to be a weapon of mass destruction. And just again, like littered with loads of really great moments of history. What I realized when watching it is that it's 2 stories. It really is 2 stories. So this story of developing the bomb trying to get it done in time is one story. And the Strauss thing, although alluded to in the beginning, it's jarring because it's a separate story. Yeah. And you get 2.5 hours into the film and it ramps up to the Strauss stuff without a break. And I'm like, okay, this is the thing you mentioned 2.5 hours ago, pre-bomb, in black and white. And even knowing that I was ready for it, and there's so much more I picked up, I'm like, yeah, this is still hard to latch onto because it's such a different thread. What the reaction to the bomb and whether or not the character study of whether or not Oppenheimer is a moral person who should have security clearance is different to like testing the bomb and getting it done in time. And I think that's what makes it really jarring. The scenes with Jean Tatlock and the presentation of women and Emily Blunt's character, it's the more I realize the dialogue between Jean Tatlock and Oppenheimer is weak because I don't think it's meant to be, I don't think this is okay, but it's not meant to be realistic. It's meant to infer a feeling of a moment in time.
Because it's from his point of view.
It's his point of view. That's
which is slightly problematic again, right?
Again, and that's why Jean Tatlock's dialogue, Florence Pugh's character, feels kind of weird and off. I think Emily Blunt, I just feel more, I really think Emily Blunt is robbed for most of the film.
Yes, I thought that.
And there's a scene which I forgot about, not the one where she's drunk and the baby's crying. There's one later in the third act of the movie where they're talking about what Strauss is doing, and Emily Blunt just randomly in a hotel room where they're discussing it with his lawyer grabs a drink and smashes it on the wall. This is intercut between so many things. Like, it's Strauss, like, you've got to blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that moment is not built up to, and it's not earned. So you see it and you're like, what she's doing. But annoyingly, Emily Blunt is one of my favorite moments later in the film when Jason Clarke, the lawyer, sees a weakness. He sees the alcohol in her bag. He sees her shaking her hands. He sees someone who might minus spoilers, who might be intellectually unable to hold up to a cross-examination. But she comes through in the most amazing way, and like the intensity with which she delivers that line is so great. So I'm not going to say Emily Blunt isn't very talented.
No, she's great. I just wish she was given more.
Absolutely. I really liked the way Rami Malek's character comes through in the end, and all these little interactions, and he just ends up being great.
I have reflected on it more. I see the choice of actors is not just to sell your film. It's Nolan leaving breadcrumbs, being like, look, absolutely. I understand that you're going to have to remember this guy an hour and a half from now. Yes. Wouldn't it be better if I used an Oscar-winning actor? So when he turns up an hour and a half later, you go, that guy. Rami Malek.
Loads of little interactions. And I think, look, like, I'm really sure it's two stories that he's tried to put into one film. Yes. And it does feel a bit like binging a miniseries.
If there's any weak point, it's that. It's the coalesce, how those things coalesce.
Yeah. And it's like realizing all the details and getting the chance to view it a second time. I'm again so impressed with the script at how much it manages to cover, and I'm like, wow, what an amazing period of history. But I think, like a lot of Nolan's films, it works, but not necessarily in real time when you watch it. It's like, I believe it all matches up, and I believe the editing is so precise, and you perfectly interwoven the stories. It doesn't mean that even on a second viewing, when the Strauss stuff really kicks into gear, that I'm just about remembering after this nuclear bomb, like that thing from 2 hours ago. I'm like, yes, that. I know the names now, and I know who I better understand him because I know the end and how it links, and it's great. It doesn't mean it works in real time. Right. That it has to be said is a little bit of a flaw of his films, but incredible watch. Really.
I again, you started on me, and I'm really looking forward to rewatch.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people probably. I hope you get the chance to watch it at home in 3-4 months, or if you get the chance to go see it in the cinema. I promise you there is stuff that you didn't pick up on or that just floated you by, and like most Nolan films, you'll be armed with more to watch it through when you go for a second time. But that was my rewatch thoughts on Oppenheimer.
Guys, we've talked about Oppenheimer quite a bit there, and Barbie. We have a few more emails to read. We really appreciate everyone sending them in. What we're going to do, we're going to allocate a different time to read those out in earnest. We don't want to rush through them. We want to give everyone's proper email its purpose, but we're conscious of time, and we just want to read out a couple of other things as well on other topics. So moving on, James, what do we have an email about?
This next one is from Adam, who says, "Hey, James and George. I hope you're both well. I'm a new listener, but I must admit my love for the podcasts, I often find myself at least dipping in for the reviews if I don't have time for the full episode.
That's fine.
You create a wonderfully relaxed and cozy vibe each episode."
That's
great
okay,
stuff.
No
Adam,
worries.
thank you and welcome.
Yeah, welcome to the new
Welcome
listeners.
in.
Hey, how you doing?
I first found Pop Kitchen thanks to my friend Alfie. We had to produce a pilot podcast episode for our journalism course, and we're both big film fanatics like yourselves, so used your podcast in our planning. We got a first for the project, so I thought I'd let you know so we could share the win.
We're being ripped off!
No, I love that. When did you guys know
fantastic,
you wanted to commit to a film podcast? I'd love to host one, but I think I just need to jump into it and stop overthinking. I have a radio show called Pop Culture at university, and that's great fun, but would like to branch out to something long form and more permanent.
I believe in episode 50 we talked about the origins of this podcast.
We did some
a little
origin
bit,
stuff.
so you can go and see
I'd say
that.
the fact that you're already doing a radio show puts you miles ahead of anyone else, and just do it. Just start. Even if you have to make
Just keep
30 really bad episodes of a podcast, if you just keep going, that will be really good. That's really cool. Keep going. I want to give my thoughts on the brilliant Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. In the course of a week, I caught up on the franchise. I'd not seen any of them before and have become a huge, in all caps, fan. I hum the tune nearly every 10 minutes. It's an issue. On my way home from Dead Reckoning, I was like, da-da-dum.
Oh, yeah.
Da-da-da. Yeah. I found Dead Reckoning to be thoroughly satisfying, totally entertaining, and epic in scale. Tom Cruise is a powerhouse that I'd been overlooking before Top Gun Maverick. I like my James Bond movies, but there's something about Mission Impossible that I really vibe with. Maybe it's the tech or the episodic nature of each outing, having your mission, should you choose to accept it, moment. Given that the original Mission Impossible TV show, haven't seen it mind, was conceived during Connery's tenure as Bond, I wanted to ask you guys, which knockoff movies/franchises do you think rival the best or originals? Keep up the fantastic work, Adam. Before we go into that, George, your thoughts on Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1?
I don't even know how to answer that question. I think it's
I
more.
need to read that
I didn't
again.
think it was a rip-off of Bond. I thought it was more like Cold War kind of espionage. And anyway,
It probably owes something to Bond.
Yeah.
Because Bond walked a good run. But
literally 2 days before we did Oppenheimer, I saw Dead Reckoning. I caught up and I took myself to the cinema to see it, and I had a thoroughly good time. And I have just some thoughts. I concur with everything you said in your review.
check out my full review on the feeds, guys.
Yep, my screening room was very respectful and really enjoyed it as well. It was very hooked. Didn't feel like 2 hours 45.
Right?
Love the third act.
Oh,
the
train,
the whole
the piano,
the kitchen section.
Yeah,
with the gap.
great with the
It's like it's so. What I
It just
think
didn't stop. Sorry.
what made the Mission Impossible films get quite right is that they're not only are they fun and energetic, but they do actually recognise that they are a little bit goofy,
Yes.
and a little bit silly, and they lean into that just enough. To get away, just enough to have like a smile on their face without taking the piss out of what's actually happening.
Because it's delivered very seriously, Mission Impossible.
But some of the humour and stuff is just pitched just right. I love that. I loved Kittredge being back.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was Henry Czerny. I called him Tom Czerny in the review, but having Henry Czerny in it, I was like, you're a really good presence in this film, and I'm actually hoping that nothing happens to you in this film because I'm enjoying you in this film so much.
Yeah.
And he doing the whole thing and the Dutch angles and everything.
eyebrows, yeah.
Mr. Hunt. I love that, and the way they kind of reveal him at the beginning of the film and just set him up as like, this is a heritage character coming back.
That scene when they brief the rest of like the intelligence
There
wasn't that
That's
just
what
so
there's this scene where
That's what I was talking to you about. The dialogue scenes are really exhilarating.
but also like to the point where I was like, look, I'm not going to follow what the entity is. Okay, There's a scene where it's like in the deep heart of the National Intelligence Agency.
They are like literally writing down the world's information because they're worried that it's looking over this room of desks where they're codifying all the information in the world.
Also, I haven't checked. So sorry. Just to clarify, in the room you have Carrie Yules, who is now the head. Yules. I never know how to say his surname. Yules, who is now the director of. He's just the director of whatever secret service. I lose track of what agency we're in. The IMF. No, we're not the IMF. Whatever. It's just in that section. And then in the room you have. Obviously they filmed a lot of it in London.
Yeah.
And they were like, what British character actors are available today? We'll get Mark Gatiss. We'll get Indira Varma. Rob Delaney. Do you want to roll?
3 days of filming.
Yeah, that's fine. And they are just overlapping
They're great.
dialogue.
Oh.
And Mark Gatiss doing his American accent, even though he's a British actor. We don't even know what the entity is, sir. And then they reveal Kittredge very nicely.
Yes.
But what I noticed, I haven't checked this online, but I was wondering in this scene, I was like, where's Angela Bassett? Because she was in the last one, right? Fallout.
Yeah.
But I noticed on the wall behind Carrie Yules, is a picture of Angela Bassett, which looks to be like she's now the president.
Oh,
And I was
nice.
like, okay. Or she's just a much more senior. She's arrived at senior, but it's her stood in front of an American flag.
Oh, nice.
And I was like,
Okay.
is it like a subtle reference to be like, well, we couldn't get Angela Bassett because she was filming Black Panther 2.
Yeah.
But we're going to reference the fact that she still exists in this universe. That's great. I love, the slickness of it. Ving Rhames never stands up in the whole film, I think. He spends the whole time sat behind a laptop.
like this.
Yeah. And then literally for the third act goes, I got to go sit somewhere in a room because I can't be running on a train.
Yeah.
And
Tom Cruise is like, I understand.
Yeah.
He's never
wears a hat for the entire film, Ving Rhames. We never see the top of his head.
for most of the franchise, I'd say.
Yes.
Yeah.
I loved all that. I think that you're right. The guy plays, is it Gabriel?
Yeah.
A nice enough bit of menace and sort of chewiness with it.
Yeah.
But Hayley Atwell, great. Attenzione, big pocket. That's what I'm saying every time I see it. She was really
Great chemistry with Tom Cruise.
Yes, and what I liked is that she was a character who was very good at one thing, very good at one section of the stuff, very good pickpocket, very shrewd, very smart, but also was vulnerable and not able to be a super
useful.
spy
Yeah.
in other sections. So she was actually
And in that moment in the car where like she obviously can't drive a car with a handcuff. It's like the limitations of it are really good.
If the third act is taken from Uncharted 2, that whole sequence with the handcuff, I was like, that's Tomorrow Never Dies on the motorbike.
Oh,
do you
God,
remember?
yeah,
do you remember
yeah,
with
yeah.
Michelle Yeoh and Pierce
Oh my
Brosnan?
God, yes,
Which is
yeah.
a great sequence on the BMW white motorbike. But I was like, look, I'll let you have that. Also, the stupidest detail is when he gets out his phone and it's like safe car, safe house, or safe food. I don't know, something ridiculous. Like, what app is that on your phone? But a rip-roaring great fun. I think it's important that he came out just before Barbenheimer, and it might have been easily missed, but consistently delivered at the level that the previous Mission Impossible films have. Yeah. I look forward to seeing what happens. Some of it is so silly, like the whole kind of the MacGuffin of the key and the entity, and Shea Wiggum as well. Love it, chewing the scenery as Ethan Hunt is an agent of chaos.
Do you know what I mean? Like when you had the Rome scene and the Abu Dhabi bit, you know what I mean? There were three things at play.
Yeah.
Like in the Abu Dhabi bit, you've got the thing that Benji's doing.
Yeah.
You've got Tom Cruise and Hayley Atwell, Gabriel, and the agents. And like when one is no longer relevant, the other one comes
like a
in,
dance,
and it's like
or a football match,
it was just so much happening, and I just thought that was so well done.
So I rate that. I rate that very much. I had a really good time, and I actually went to see that on my own. And it was absolutely fun going to see it in the cinema on my own. But I did come out, and I was like, I wish I had seen that with someone so I could talk to them about it, which is what you guys are here for, I suppose. So that was Mission Impossible 7.
I saw it with my cousin, and he's like, he's very sort of, he's very like smart and professional, and he was like, that was a lot smarter than I thought it would be. And I was like, yeah, it's great, isn't it? And he was like, yeah, like the whole conceptualization of the entity was really like well thought out. And I'm like, yeah, like as an AI thing, you're going to call the entity.
I know.
They did enough, like establishing the threat of it, and had the visuals to like show you that it was there.
Also, they do, which I won't reveal because I don't want to spoil it. They do something, but a certain character decision. They go, "Oh, I'm glad you did that. I'm glad you made the decision to do that with that certain character, so we can move this story forward." You know what I mean?
I can't remember.
You do. Okay, we'll talk about it off air.
You didn't use a noun or a verb. So you just said that.
They decide. You know what? It's fine. Moving on. Okay, guys, time to play some games as usual. We didn't play any games last week, so we have 4 rounds for you today.
Boom.
Of a game we played about a month ago, which I think we really enjoyed, which was guessing the movie from the song. Now, James, I went away and on the tube home in my mind palace, I was like, I could have done that round. And I have spent, there's a massively long note in my phone of me writing all these names down. So I have 4 rounds for you.
Okay.
Where, again, I'm going to name the song and the artist, and you have to tell me the film.
Okay.
We're going to do it quick fire, so I'm going to tell you the answer as we go, okay?
Okay, yeah.
So, James.
I won't get all of it. I can just tell.
No, I don't think you will.
No. As per most games, I will fail most of them.
James, guess the movie from the song.
Okay.
In 3, 2, 1. Stuck in the Middle with You by Steelers Wheel.
Reservoir Dogs.
Yes. What a Feeling by Irene Cara.
Oh, what film is that in? No, go on.
Flashdance.
Okay.
Caravan by Duke Ellington.
The Whiplash?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
I've Had the Time of My Life by Bill Medley and Jennifer Warnes.
Dirty Dancing.
Correct. Goodbye Horses by Q Lazarus.
No, go on.
Great needle drop in Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, okay.
Under Pressure, Queen and David Bowie.
Oh my God, no.
Recent. Very distinctive.
No, go on.
After Sun.
Oh,
And last one of the
Yeah,
round,
okay.
Heart and Soul by Hoagie Carmichael.
No, go on.
Big Piano.
Oh, Big?
Yes.
Yes.
Literally Big Piano. Well done, James. That was not bad. You did better than I
Okay, God,
expected.
did better than I thought, yeah.
Well done on Caravan.
Yeah,
Because
it's
what I
really-
put that in there because that song is featured in the film a lot. And I thought...
There's a really distinctive moment. It's like, okay, and now Caravan.
There you go. James, are you ready for your next
I
round?
want to rewatch Whiplash. You rewatched it recently.
Ah, yeah,
didn't
it's
you?
great.
Yeah.
Recently, I did rewatch it.
Recently, yeah.
Are you ready for your next round?
I am.
James, guess the movie from the song in 3, 2, 1, Flight of the Valkyries by Wagner.
Apocalypse Now.
Correct. We Don't Need Another Hero by Tina Turner. Mad Max Thunderdome.
Okay.
Beyond Thunderdome. Love My Way by the Psychedelic Furs.
No.
Call Me By Your Name.
Okay.
Everybody's Talking by Harry Nilsson.
Oh, no. Go on.
Midnight Cowboy. Mrs. Robinson by Simon and Garfunkel. So famous.
So, it's on the tip of my
So
tongue.
famous.
Go on.
The Graduate. Don't Stop Me Now by Queen.
A couple of films.
Oh, come on. There's one famous one that use it in. Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, fine.
And Hurdy Gurdy Man by Donovan.
No, I don't know.
Zodiac.
Oh, okay.
That's
yeah, I
good
wouldn't have
then.
got
Come
that.
on, Don't Stop Me Now by Queen. Come
Yeah,
on, that-
but like
the pool cues.
I feel like that's in a lot of films.
I don't think these songs
Yeah,
have been
no,
used
I
in
could've-
more than one thing. But
Okay.
Also, I said Wagner. I should have said. Did I say Wagner or Wagner for Blind
said
Wagner?
Wagner.
Okay. Are you ready, James? I'm
Okay.
wearing you down
Yes,
slowly.
it
but
really
surely.
does. It's such an assault of things.
James, guess the movie based on the song in 3, 2, 1. Born Slippy by Underworld.
Trainspotting.
I Believe I Can Fly. R. Kelly.
What's that in?
Space Jam.
Oh, okay.
A Man for All Seasons by Robbie Williams.
Johnny English.
Yes. Tubular Bells by Mike Oldfield.
Say again?
Tubular Bells by Mike Oldfield.
No.
Very famous. The Exorcist.
Oh, okay. Yes. Oh.
Beethoven's Ninth Symphony.
Well, do I know the ninth? Would
You
be...
don't know the ninth? That is using Clockwork Orange.
Oh, okay, fine.
Thus Spake Zarathustra by Strauss.
No.
2001: A Space Odyssey.
I don't know the name. I recognise the song, I don't know the name of it.
Night Call by Kavinsky.
Where you drive.
Yes. And All Star by Smash Mouth.
Shrek.
Yes. And also I would accept Rat Race as well.
Yes, yeah.
Well done.
It's
over
like,
there.
I'm not sure, apart from the fifth, I can differentiate
yeah.
Beethoven's. It's like,
I know, but it's because in Clockwork Orange he's obsessed with Beethoven. He's a big fan. And Thus Spake Zarathustra, I just know that because that's the...
yes. It's like, I'm
Because I can't get it confused with the other Zarathustra. the other Zarathustra speaking bit.
there's a complete other version of this game, which would actually be much more fun, which we can't play on YouTube, which would be to play the song.
Yes, yeah,
and
of
then
course.
you do it,
Yeah.
but you know.
Or be like one of those TikTok guys that goes and plays the thing goes above
the number.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not us.
And they always look really into the
Really
camera.
like piercing, because I think they don't have a visual, so
Yeah.
they're like, they give it to
It's
you.
quite intense.
Yeah.
Last one, James. Last one.
Whereas we're a TikTok channel, we don't really do eye contact. We're at each other.
Last round, James. Are you ready?
Sirens and Ireland.
Guess the movie from the song in 3, 2, 1. Being Alive by Stephen Sondheim.
Being alive, I see.
Marriage Story. Mustang Sally by Los Lobos. Miss Congeniality. Twist and Shout by the Beatles. Famously.
Oh, God.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh, God.
Knocking on Heaven's Door by Bob Dylan. You won't get this one.
Oh, it's so familiar.
That is actually originally made for Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid.
Oh, no.
Super Freak by Rick James.
The problem is these songs are like...
Final song of the film.
No, I've not got it.
Little Miss Sunshine.
Oh, yeah.
The Times They Are A-Changing by Bob Dylan.
No.
Yes, the opening of Watchmen.
Oh,
Do you
I've not
remember?
seen it, yeah.
Hip to Be Square by Huey Lewis in the News. Do you like Huey Lewis in the News?
No, go on.
Do you like Huey Lewis in the News? It's American Psycho, James. There's a whole speech about it.
Yeah.
You did, I would
Zero
say,
in that one.
poorly. I
Yeah,
would say
yeah.
quite
Well, that
poorly.
last round was a fat zero.
I
Bagel.
think, yeah.
Yeah.
You hit a wall and you didn't keep going.
It's hard, like when you say...
If I played you the song You could probably do
I
it.
do a lot better, yeah.
I'm
Sometimes
asking
the
you to
names I don't
essentially
have.
be some sort of human Shazam.
Yeah.
And instead of telling me the film, or telling me the song, I'm asking you to tell me the film.
Have you seen on Google, you can just sing it, and without the words, you can hum it.
Should we try it?
It's really good.
Can you show me how?
If you've got the Google app, you need to have the actual... This isn't an ad, by the way.
Chrome.
No, you need the Google app.
Do you have it?
Boom, 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 boom.
Oh,
boom.
wait, I haven't. Oh,
Okay, redo. Sometimes when you interface with technology, you really look like you've never seen it before. Like when you click on my laptop, and all the windows just collapse. And like,
because it's a Mac.
I know.
Bum, 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 bum. It doesn't
Why?
like bums.
It doesn't like bums.
There we
Guys,
go.
thank you so much for listening to this episode of
Did you
PULP
hear
Kitchen.
the
That was
violence with which you
nice
slammed
slap.
your phone down? You don't even have it in a case.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode of PULP Kitchen. Don't forget, we post new episodes of this show every single Wednesday.
Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. And continue to follow us on Instagram and TikTok and like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Share and tell people about it. And also stay tuned for bonus content that we got coming this week about Quentin Tarantino.
And guys, if you have now seen both Barbie and Oppenheimer and you've listened to our review and you want some more thoughts about the plot, we sort of just throw little bits of plot that we like and dislike at each other in our bonus. So go and check that out if you've seen both of the films and you want a little bit more on that.
We will get to your Barbenheimer emails, we promise. But in the meantime, everyone, have a good week. Just take it easy. Watch some films. Just enjoy your summer.
See you next week.
Bye.